Hi, I'm Jessica Califano, Director of Community Support and Publishing at Adafruit Industries. This is episode 1 of our brand new video series on women in hardware presented by Adafruit and Hackster. Today we're just outside the littleBits offices in New York City, about to sit down with Ayah Bdeir, CEO and founder of littleBits, and Limor, founder and lead engineer at Adafruit, to talk about hardware, business, design, and more. littleBits are cute, color-coded electronic building blocks that allow you to invent everything from a remote-controlled car to a smart home device or even your own synthesizer. They're magnetic and easy to use, which allows kids of all ages to learn about technology in fun and interesting ways. The first question we have for you is, why did you choose New York to locate your headquarters, and what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being in New York City?
There are many professional and personal reasons that we chose to start in New York. On a personal level, I love New York. I always wanted to live in New York since I was growing up, and so there's a very big pull that New York has, to be kind of have your finger on the pulse of the world. But as a company, littleBits is about democratizing electronics and about inspiring kids around the world to be inventors. And that means kids of all ages, of all genders, of all backgrounds, of all languages. And so diversity is baked into the product that we make, and so we have to be in an area that is diverse. New York is extremely diverse. We're able to hire people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, languages. We have 18 different languages in the company, and diversity of thought too. People from different industries. People are not all one note. So it's a huge advantage for us to be in New York from that respect.
And I know you had a pop-up store as well. Well, that was a really cool thing. What was that like to have a store in New York?
That was. I mean, in retrospect, it was a bigger project than I thought. Initially, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a piece of cake." It's pop-up.
It's pop-up.
So cute.
Pop-up sounds easy.
We'll pop it up. We'll pop it down. No, it wasn't. It was really fun. We did it in 2015. We did it from June till December. Our goal was we wanted to experiment with what we could look like at retail, how to display, how to talk about our product, and we wanted to have a workshop area so that you could come and do workshops. It was a lot of work, but we learned so much from it. We had school tours that were coming by. We had kids that would come over and over, on a weekly basis. We were able to experiment with different types of inventions that you could make. And to be honest, it was just a really good opportunity to introduce the brand to people just off the street that are not kind of in the know or in the niche that we're usually talking to. So that was awesome.
You actually talked about how you have light manufacturing here, which is kind of interesting because New York used to be a manufacturing hub of America, and it's kind of hard to do manufacturing in New York, but I saw that you guys have an electronic manufacturing prototyping lab. What kind of stuff do you guys do in there?
It's a really small lab, so it's actually, there's a lot of efficiency packed up in that room, but there's a pick and place machine. There are obviously all the prototyping tools, oscilloscopes, and
so they have an oven,
and all of that. There's an oven, exactly.
A lot of microscopes.
We don't do manufacturing. It's really mostly prototyping, but we do small run, reasonably medium runs for when we're doing samples and user testing. So we could do a few hundred bits at a time when we're prototyping. But it's not nothing goes to a customer. We're not selling the stuff that we make here.
Right, but it allows you to do fast iteration. I mean, how many iterations do you have per bit?
It depends. Some of them, the simpler ones, will be fewer iterations. Some of them have, 4 or 5 iterations. But then some of the complex ones that have more software on them, there'll be dozens of iterations. And so it really helps to be able to do it quickly and do it frequently.
Yeah, that's really smart that you guys have. This is something I try to tell people who do electronics. I say, even if your manufacturing is in a bigger company, being able to do the prototyping in-house means you'll get your hands on the bit. You test all the bits when they first come out.
Yeah,
so you get to look at it, you touch it, and you'll know immediately. How many bits do you have in the?
Now we have about 70 bits, not counting some that we discontinued because we wanted to redesign them. So about 70.
So you know a bit when you see it.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope so. I see bits everywhere. I walk around the street and I think I see bits.
Do you get inspired by walking around New York?
I do a lot. I actually used to get a lot of inspiration early in the days. Early in the company, I used to get a lot of inspiration from reading customer service tickets. I used to read every single customer service ticket. I used to get ideas from like what people would ask and be like, oh, that's an interesting question. Maybe they meant that, and that would be kind of a product idea. Now I'm not reading those as often anymore, but I get inspiration from like other stuff around, like a new piece of technology that was launched. We're like, okay, how can we make that easier for kids to understand? Or sometimes from other fields. I don't know.
Yeah, the magic is taking the bits that you'll make. They're so technically complicated. But what you do is you take something that's so complicated and you make it like it's you snap it together. Yeah. And there's such a bridge of user experience, of empathy, of technology, of technical skill to take something so complicated and make it so simple.
That's actually, it's funny, early in the company, I used to get this question a lot, like, why is this so, especially when I was raising money, like, why is it so complicated? Why can't this be like a couple of engineers and, the bits are so simple? They're actually super complex. As you say, like, first of all, it takes a lot of design effort and user experience at the level of the bit for us to make something complex easy, but also when you want a compact functionality and make it really at the right level of abstraction, it's actually also quite complicated in how you design the bit. So we struggle with that. It's something that we have to continuously like keep ourselves in check, and we test and we look at feedback from users and are things, should we word things differently? Should we lay out the board differently? It's kind of it's a really thoughtful, focused effort.
I think one of the things, especially since you're making electronics for beginners, kids at heart, one of the things that strikes me is the saying, like, if the technology is really good, you don't even think it's there.
Yeah.
It's actually almost kind of great that the people you're talking to in business and investment say, well, how hard can it be? I mean, you've made it so easy that they don't think there's any work to it.
Well, when you're raising money, it's not great for them to think that, because you're like, I need your money to do this stuff. But yeah, no, it's some of the things that you look at and you're like, oh, that's obvious. That means a lot of, usually a lot of thought went into making that thing obvious or appear simple. It means it's resonating. It's essentially.
Bam. Okay. Cool.
Great. Okay. So one thing that is really important to both Adafruit and littleBits is open source and the open source hardware and software movements. So maybe we can talk a little bit about why you guys are such big advocates for open source and what it means to you.
Open source, I think my interest and passion about open source was always about how you can enable innovation. And I think that the patent system was created to protect innovation, so that when somebody worked for many years on something, they could really take advantage of the time that they spent and the investment that they did in this. But the patent system now has become such that it's killing innovation. It's all about territory, it's all about blocking other people out. Companies sometimes patent things that they don't even put into production just because they want to protect themselves. And that's doing the reverse effect. And so for me, open source was about, how do you put these ideas out and inspire others to learn from them and make them better. It's a double-edged sword though, because in hardware in particular, there's a lot of financial investment, there's a lot of time investment, and a lot of kind of real physical kind of blockers to replicating. And so it becomes difficult to think about what's a balanced perspective on open source. So we have a balanced point of view. We make the individual design for the circuits open, but we have the system, the connector, and future innovations, they're not. So we try to come up with a balanced way where we could be we're a for-profit company, we've raised money, we can kind of be able to protect the business from copycats, and even then there's a lot of copycats. Right. But at the same time be able to kind of inspire a next generation of innovation.
What have you seen are the benefits of doing open source hardware? Have you seen people develop new bits or add to the community, or maybe some of these copycats get some good ideas?
In the early days of littleBits, we were very focused on in the very early days, littleBits was for kids, but littleBits was also for designers and engineers and prototypers. And we've, over time, really started to focus on kids. So now the company primarily is about inspiring kids to be inventors. And in that respect, open source is much less relevant. So we don't see as much of like the designs being downloaded or anything like that, but occasionally teachers will use these files to kind of teach students that are a little bit, older about, design and stuff. But as you focus more on kids, it's less relevant. In the early days, we saw, just like makers do variations of bits for themselves.
Like I think you can like buy the connector if people want to make their own bit
Yeah,
design.
we have an HDK. Yeah, we have an HDK where you get a perf board, you get breakout boards, you get kind of the magnetic connectors, so you could put on your own board. So we do enable that. It's not a huge part of our business anymore.
Okay, well, you move and that's part of the running a business.
Exactly.
You have to adapt and understand like where is the market going. So you
exactly.
think, you feel like, I remember the original point was a little bit, I don't remember the name of it before it was called littleBits. Did it have another name or am I confused? There was a design.
I don't remember Life Before littleBits.
I know. I
don't remember anything that happened.
But you had the
before.
lamp kit, right? And it was like a designer toolkit. And I remember you thought it was going to be for industrial.
The smart home kit, the cloud bit. Is that what you're talking
No, this
about?
was a long time ago. It was a lamp, and it was like a design. It was like the designer toolkit or something. I don't remember what it was, or maybe you described it that way. But you thought it was going to be by industrial designers because prototype new products. But this was a long time. This was when you first founded the company.
Yeah. Even before, this was in 2008 when I was still kind of ideating and prototyping. Yeah.
Yeah, but then why do you think it's been more kids and less designers? Why do you think you've moved that way?
Part of it was where we were seeing the market go, but part of it also, we just realized we could have a lot more impact. In the first, I think in 2011, when I went out to Maker Faire, when we first launched the product, I actually still have the first receipt from the first sale there. I thought that I was just like, we were presenting to our peers, other hackers and makers and engineers and designers, but actually the people that would hang out the most at the booth were kids. There were lines of kids that were hanging out, and they would stay for hours. And I remember very well this one mom came behind the booth and told me, please, I need you to pretend that you're closing down the booth because I need to go home and my daughter just will not stop. And so at that point I was like, wow, if this is something that kids could gravitate to and they could start playing with, asking questions, learning about, we could have huge impact on it. So we started to focus a little bit more on it gradually. And then when we saw that actually we could run a business doing that as well, and it wasn't just a mission, then it was like the perfect kind of focus of mission and business.
So there's this new color sensor on the market, and y'all want to make a bit out of it so you can do color sensing and maybe have Legos or like my pink hair or your beautiful purple shirt affect a bit. How do you go through the process of making the bit?
We actually have developed a pretty rigorous process for how to design bits. So we have pages of kind of best practices of how to design a bit, and so it's a combination of, obviously in the very beginning when you're first starting with a sensor, it's like get the sensor working on a breadboard or on a perf board situation to just see how the sensor reacts and how you would use it and what's interesting about it, etc. But then and that's relatively kind of traditional engineering. There's not much
get the thing, does it work?
LittleBits, yeah. Exactly, nothing specific to littleBits there. But then when we do get it working, there's a huge phase that we do of really interaction design at the level of the bit to make sure that the sensor is, how it works is communicated properly. You're giving proper modes and dials to be able to use it. So let's say we have a light sensor. Bit, we wanted to have a dark mode and a light mode so that you could be able to imagine how to use it, triggered by light or triggered by dark. We have sequencers where the dials are more around timing and things like that. So we try to make it, one of the inspirations early on was a blender, which is essentially one motor with a bunch of buttons that are, depending on different use cases for the customer. But really, the engineering is not that complex. It's all in the interaction design.
And when you're designing something like this blender motor or bit or this light sensor bit, of course you have to have the technology, you have to have the sensor itself, but actually at this point just about every sensor exists, right?
Yeah,
anything you could possibly want. So do you come at it as here's a cool technology, let's get a bit, or is it here's all the bit projects that we want to make. How does this fit into them? Like, is it coming from the user side or from the technology side?
It used to be from the technology side. In the first couple of years, a little bit, it was just about building up the library and showing that there was enough richness in the system that you could do things that are mechanical or that are sensors based or that are that are visual or display of different things. So it was really about so that was technology based. It was like what are all the sensors and all the actuators that we want to have in the system. Now it's actually more kit driven. So now it's what is the purpose of this kit? Like the Gizmos and Gadgets kit, its purpose is to get you to make gizmos and gadgets. So it's about motors, it's about wireless robots and things like that. And then we design the bits into it. Now our latest product that we announced last month, that actually launching next month, is the code kit, which is an education product. That's all about teaching kids how to code. And so it's the concept of the kit is teaching kids how to code through making games.
So are the games designed first, and then you make the bits to match?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite bit? Do you have a favorite?
You probably get asked every day, what's your favorite bit?
We have actually, when people join the team, one of our questions is like, what bit are you? And I like the power bit.
You're the power bit?
Yeah.
You're like the engine.
Yeah. Because you always need one in the circuit. So.
Right. Okay.
I like to think
Ayah
of
is
myself
essential.
Okay.
I think of you sort of like the sequencer bit, because I kind of think of you sort of like making sure like all the little parts of the company sequence in order.
That could be too.
Okay.
I'll take it.
Do double bit.
More, what would be yours?
Wow. Like I actually really like the buzzer bit.
Yeah.
I like
it's
it.
a kid favorite, yeah.
I'll tell you why I like the buzzer bit, because parents hate it, but kids love it.
Yeah,
and there's something about that like just warms my heart.
Yeah. 100%.
Because kids love making annoying sounds.
They love making annoying sounds. Some of the
it.
favorite inventions that kids love are sibling alarms, parent alarms, and like stuff protectors. Like these are some of the favorite things that they make.
I also like the little speaker. I mean, that's an adorable little speaker.
Yeah, it is. It's like a little boombox.
It is so cute. All right, so that's my favorite bit. If I had to pick one bit, which it's hard because there's 70.
Yeah, you get emotional about the bits.
Okay,
you get attached to them.
Intense bitness.
Okay, so imagine there was a time travel bit, and you could go back in time to when you guys were both first starting your companies. What piece of advice would you give to yourself, and what piece of advice would you give yourself if you were 5 years in the future?
Okay. One piece of advice that I would give myself 5 years ago is to just try to spend as much time with your customers as possible. There was a while where we were just so busy and we were just like really focused on the work that we were doing that we didn't spend as much time as we had before with customers, with users, with kids, and you get farther from your core. So now we go back to we do weekly user testing. We have kid councils. The code kit that I was mentioning earlier, we designed it with an advisory education council and a kid council as well, and there's so much value out of that. There's nothing like it.
Yeah. Do you know what? Do you remember Bunny?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. I like we were all like, oh yeah. Like,
he was here a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, cool. So one of the things that Bunny told me, he actually gave me this advice 5 years ago, and so I'm cheating by like recycling his advice because it's so good, is he told me, and this is like the best thing I ever learned, he said, if you're smart enough to make the money, you have to be smart enough to protect the money. And so he's the one who actually told me, you have to spend time to protect the business, and that means getting proper practices in place and process. Because I know you're like an engineer and like you're so capable, and I'm sure you're just like, I'll just do it myself. But actually like you can't at a certain point. And investing time and money into protecting the business, whether it be from process or legal or HR, it's like the thing that you really don't, like you're allergic to as an engineer, but because of that, you really have to do it.
Yeah, it's super important, 100%. I agree with that advice.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're looking 5 years forward. What are you going to tell yourself in 5 years? It doesn't have to be advice. Maybe you want to just send a message.
I'm going to ask myself, do you remember when some people didn't know what littleBits was?
Yeah, that's good.
Very good.
All right.
Limor, do you have one?
Yeah, my advice to my future self is stay true to yourself, because when you navigate this world, especially the world of business, it's really easy to get like wrapped up and like kind of not stay true to your roots and what built the company and what got you there. And I think it's really hard because everybody around you is like, oh, you should like do this, you should do that. Yeah. But you have to like the culture of the company comes to the top. You are littleBits. Like littleBits is you. Like you were purple too. Like I want to like snap things onto the side of you. Like there's no way to extract the company from you.
Which is good and bad.
Which is good and bad.
It's hard.
It's really hard because you yourself, it's like, it's also something I also remember, I got good advice. You sometimes have to wear the mask of your own face. And that's what running a company is a lot of the times is you're you, but you're not you. Like there's Ayah and there's Ayah.
You're a curated version of you, yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so I think that you have to remember sometimes to take off that mask, still be you, and like know when to be that person and when to be yourself. But on the other hand, when people are buying littleBits, they are buying you and your story.
Yeah.
And like it's not bad.
And you have to make sure that it represents
your
values and what you think in the world.
Yeah. Which is kind of, it's really good that you're such a good person and such a good engineer that you can make a product that's like a good product and a good engineer.
You're a good person.
Yeah, but like, is it like interesting? Like some people aren't, and they don't make it that far. But
you get micro choices that you're making on a daily basis that could veer you off from your values easily. You could be short-term thinking. You could be, kind of promoting values that you don't believe in because just like the world is not all good and positive. There are some negative things that go on that you could partake in. And so, that's good advice.
That's one of the things I like about the video series that we're doing is I'm trying to show how you can be a good cause and a good business and a good person. And okay, everybody has their flaws, right? Nobody's perfect. You have flaws, I have flaws. We do things that we regret in the company and but we find our way forward and we learn from those mistakes and we go forward.
And we own up to them when we make them. I think
exactly.
That's important too.
And that's really important.
That's important.
And there's a lot of people I know who when they make mistakes in their companies, they double down, and then like literally 2 years later they're out of business.
Yeah.
It's like it can happen that quickly. So you have to be flexible. And like I like how you said like, oh, we changed our path instead of just being like, no, it's for artists and designers and like I hate kids. like some people could you could have said that. Yeah. It's not for children.
We could have dug our heels in for sure.
But you didn't because you were flexible and you're willing to change your mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your hope for the future of educational technologies and hardware?
All littleBits.
Yeah, my hope for the future is that there are decades of research now that shows that kids learn better when they're playing and when they're making and when they're touching. Decades of research. It's not controversial, it's not political, it's not even in question. The results point to learning through play as an effective methodology. My hope for the future of education is that more schools and teachers and administrators adopt that thinking because decades and centuries of teaching through memorization and kind of doing multiple choice tests doesn't work. It hasn't been working, and kids don't enjoy learning. They don't enjoy going to school, and they don't retain the information when they leave. And so we have to do things differently. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over. So my hope for the future is that schools around the country and the world adopt littleBits, yes, but also adopt other tools. Like there's so many incredible projects and tutorials that Adafruit's been doing for so many years that are extremely valuable to every classroom in the country and in the world. And there are other makers around the world that are doing the same thing. And so more of that adopted is what my hope for the future is.
What I like about littleBits is that, and this is like the thing that you can take the credit for, like take credit all day, is instead of just like being like, okay, here's a curriculum and we have to, you know what I mean? Like here's what like grade 5 kids have to learn and like designing something just for that, or designing something that just teaches Ohm's law and like, you know what I mean? Like instead of making it like, here's the factoids that you have to learn and I'll build a game around it. You're like, no, I want to have a fun experience, and when they learn something that's good. And I was actually reminded, because some people were asking me like a couple months ago, like, hey, can you design a kit to match a curriculum? And I said, the people who write books, like authors, like, you're not going to write Harry Potter with a list of all the vocabulary words.
Yeah.
Right? There isn't like, here's your vocabulary words that you have to cover in this book, and then you write a novel. Like, that isn't how it works. Like, the story comes through you, right? Because you're like an artist, an engineer, an artist, and like a storyteller. The story comes through you, and then as you're doing it, you'll take the vocabulary words that make sense. I see that you have scientific theories that you bring in, but it isn't. It only is if it helps the story along.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's not the starting point. It has to be. It becomes one of the constraints that you're working within, like cost and like size and like time. Curriculum and subjects that we have to cover become important as one of the constraints and the objectives. But it cannot be the driver. It cannot be the starting point. In
that's how science is taught.
It can't because and so the littleBits Code Kit is the main insight was kids love games. They love playing games. They love making games. They love inventing new games. And so if we're gonna teach them and get them excited about learning how to code, let's just do it through games. And the results are amazing. We see them, they're asking questions, they're pulling information, they're trying new things, they're experimenting, they're having so much fun, they're telling other kids about it. There's nothing more powerful than that.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us.
Thank you, and thank you for doing this series. This is so important. This is what real conversations with women in hardware,
this is like
women
real
in tech is.
Yes, I'm so glad that we actually covered like the design, technology, business, and it was, I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
It's really great. Well, I kind of want to come back here every week, but
You're always welcome, you know that.
I'm going to let you back to the bits. Maybe we'll have you interview someone
Yeah,
on one of our series.
pay it
That'd
forward.
be cool. Yeah, that'd be neat.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks, Jessica.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.